Hey friends, Durosai here. Hope you guys are doing well and staying creative. So in this video, I'll be going over layering bass lines. I've actually already made a video on this. I did a video covering all the different bass line layers for my track Stick and Poke, but it doesn't hurt to get more examples. So this one is gonna be more of like I guess like Rominimal kind of track. I mean, is it? I'm not sure. Like, what the fuck are genres anyways? But like I said, it's good to see this stuff over and over again to get more practice and hopefully spark some creativity in your music workflow. But before I get into it, I'm obligated to tell you to check out some of my music. Follow me on Instagram where I post jam videos, random content where I'm playing new music, all that good stuff. And I ask you to help support the channel. So thank you for that, and let's get into the video. Okay, so here's a track that I recently started that I just have everything in session view, haven't really arranged anything yet, but I have this idea down. So what I'll do is I'll play you what I have so far of this, and then I'll solo the bass and the kick and go over each element. So yeah, let's do it. And now I'll play you the bass. So the way I have this bass line structured is that, of course, I have the kick, I have a sub bass that's really just providing the very low frequencies, and then I have two mid basses, one that's covering kind of around like 100 to 200-ish, and then this one's playing a little bit of the higher mid bass frequencies. This is like from Serum, and the other one's from my Moog. So I'll start from the lower frequencies and then work my way up. So starting with the kick, let me play that. This is coming from kick 2, which I normally don't use. I haven't used it in a very long time, but like normally I try to just find a nice kick sample or layer a couple samples to make a really nice kick, which, speaking of which, if you want to learn how to do that, check out this video that I'll put a little thing up here and a link in the description where I talk about exactly how to do that, like taking different sounds and layering them to make a really nice sounding kick. But in this case, none of that was working. I could not get something to sound good, so I tried out kick 2 and it actually worked out pretty well. The only issue that I have with kick 2 is that it sounds too clean because it's like literally synthesizing a kick, so you get this raw waveform. And so that's why I'm using the CLA76 and R-Comp to just grid it up a tiny bit. But before that, I have this EQ taking out some of the these little low mid kind of muddy frequencies. That's without it, and that's with it. And then here's CLA76 and R-Comp, so without it. So the CLA76 is adding a little bit of snappiness to the kick, a tiny bit of grit, and then R-Comp is just adding a little bit more compression and also rounding off the kick just a little bit with this this warm setting turned on. If you have this turned off, R-Comp is actually a very transparent compressor, but when you have it with the warm setting turned on, it actually kind of rounds off the kick a little bit. You really notice it in the headphones. It just adds like a bit of, warmth, as it says. So, and this is also just controlling that kick just a bit so it's not so boomy. So next, we have our sub bass. So So the sub bass is coming from operator, and this is essentially just a pure sine wave, almost, because I actually have the second operator is barely coming in. See, I have it at -39. So it's slightly modulating the first operator, so that's adding a bit of harmonics to it. And the reason I'm doing that is just so it sounds, so you can kind of hear it a little bit better on a smaller sound system. And so I really don't want too much harmonics with this bass because I have these two other mid bass lines. So if you have too much harmonics here, then that's going to clash with the rest of the bass lines. So I want this to be, you know, pretty just subby. So that's what I have going on here, just shelving down some of the really low frequencies. Got some drum buzz to fatten that up, and then of course some sidechain to the kick. And now I wanted this to kind of talk with the kick. So I have this somewhat of a call and exchange. I don't know if you can really call it that, but the kick, as you can see, every now and then there's these double kicks and like these offbeat kicks. And what I'm just making sure is that none of the bass line so the bass line MIDI is down here, the kick's up here. I'm just making sure that none of the bass line MIDI interferes with those double kicks. So like I moved all these out of the way. So, you know, not only is that making your bass a little bit tighter and giving you more headroom because you don't have the kick and the bass playing at the same time, but I think it also adds a lot of groove because it sounds like the bass and the kick are having this little dance. They're communicating with each other. I love the way it goes like do 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 do. So same here, I'm getting the bass line out of the way of these auxiliary kicks. I really love having these aux kicks. They add a lot of like variation and groove, especially in the club where like the kick is just so like, it's like the main thing. It's the main feature in the club, right? So huge and envelops the whole room. When you have these little offbeat kicks, I personally really love it when I hear it. Just adds so much flavor to the bass. So yeah, doing that everywhere. So doing the same thing here, getting rid of moving the bass away from the kick. Yeah. So next we got this Moog bass line. And the Moog bass line, I'm high passing pretty much everything below like 130 and then adding this delay. So the Moog bass, it picks up where the sub bass leaves off. So if you look at the sub bass, the frequency responds to this. See how it starts rolling off pretty heavily after 100 Hertz. But then the Moog, it starts bringing up. It also starts rolling off after 100, but like in the other way. So you want to make sure when you have all these bass lines, you want to make sure that you get the crossover between the bass lines really coherent. Sometimes what can happen is that you might notice that it just sounds very like, what do you call it, discontinuous, you know? So like there's like, you have your mid and you have your sub and they're not like cohesive together. And just adjusting these low pass and high pass filters can make a huge difference because you want them to be like a seamless transition between the sub range and the mid range. And that's how you're going to get this full like nice amount of bass. And then let's come to the last thing here, which is Serum. It's a little like, I guess it's a mid, I don't even know if it's not really, I guess, so much bass at this point. There is some bass. It's playing more in like the 200 to 300 region, but it also has stuff going up to 1K. So it's starting to become more of like a synth kind of part, but I'm still including it with the bassline group. And so we can check out what I'm doing here. Pretty simple, just have these two FM oscillators going. This one's in stereo, so got the unison turned up. This one's in mono. Just using this filter, so this is like having like a quick attack on the filter to give it a little bit of snappiness, and then I'm modulating some parameters over time. So I have the rate set very low, so it's like very slowly just going through like the position and these waveform modulators, and that's just adding some variation to keep it from being stale. And then in the FX, I got some distortion, and actually pretty heavy amount of distortion here. This is without it. This is with it. Then got this one going into a chorus and delay. Chorus is just giving a little bit of that more stereo width, and well, a delay is a delay. And again, I'm trying to make sure that all these MIDI notes complement whatever's being played here in the kick and the sub bass and the Moog. So trying to, you know, fill in the gaps of the other bass lines with this, and also just provide like a nice rolling kind of groove. And all this is just playing this A note and then an octave above the same note, A. And that's the key of the track. And then all together, yeah, you have this really big bass line that's working together. And hopefully sounds good in the club. I haven't played in the club yet, so I wouldn't know, but sounds pretty good in the studio, gotta admit. Well, that's how I layer bass lines for minimal house or Rominimal or whatever the hell you would call this. I hope you found this helpful, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It's greatly appreciated. And I will catch you guys in the next video. See ya.